As Victoria sat across from me, clutching my purse to keep my hands from shaking, she said, "I consider this disloyal." Her voice like ice as she stared at me from behind her imposing mahogany desk. The shock of being called into her office at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday had worn off, and I felt a heavy knot in my stomach as I realized what was happening. "Victoria, don't bother denying it," she said, interrupting me with a perfectly manicured nail tapping on a printed email. "I can confirm that on Thursday you had an interview with North Bay Solutions. You had a dentist appointment, so you took a half day off. Apparently none of that mattered now. My name is Addison Walker, and I'm 31 years old. I've spent 6 years of my professional life at Harbor Point Communications in Spokane, Washington. And during that time, I've tripled my clientele, generated millions of dollars in revenue, and gained the respect of every major account on our roster. At your workplace, security will greet you. Your access to the building is instantly terminated, but you are free to retrieve your personal things." 3 years in a row, I had come to this same office with carefully prepared presentations that showed my accomplishments, market-rate salary comparisons, and requests for a well-earned raise. 3 years of tough budget year excuses, while Victoria announced record profits at quarterly meetings. Victoria's voice was emotionless as she slid my company ID across her desk and said, "I've already disabled your email access." The injustice of it burned in my chest. After inhaling deeply, I straightened my blazer and got to my feet. "I understand." Perhaps expecting tears or begging, Victoria seemed almost disappointed by my cool attitude, so I reached across the desk. The security guard hovered awkwardly by my desk, and I felt surprisingly calm as I packed my family photos and 6 years of desk plants into a cardboard box. "I wish you and Harbor Point continued success," I said, my voice steady despite the emotional turmoil inside. She hesitated, then briefly shook my hand, confusion flickering across her face. As I walked out of those glass doors for the last time, the April sunshine warm on my face, I realized something crucial. Victoria believed she was punishing me, and she couldn't have been more mistaken. Colleagues looked at me with concern, but I smiled reassuringly. David Clean, the CEO of North Bay Solutions, buzzed my phone as I was loading the box into my car's trunk, asking if we could reschedule our last conversation for today at 2 p.m. Victoria had no idea what was about to happen, so I grinned. It's funny how 6 years of your life can fit into a single cardboard box. As I drove home from Harbor Point, the box secure in my trunk, I reflected on everything that had led to this moment. I joined the company fresh out of graduate school, eager and determined despite my marketing degree from Washington State University. I started in an entry-level position making coffee runs and organizing meeting notes, but I worked tirelessly, staying late, volunteering for the difficult projects nobody wanted, and building relationships with clients who others had written off as too demanding. Within 2 years, I was handling our mid-tier accounts. By year 4, I'd been entrusted with North Bay Solutions, our largest client, worth nearly 30% of Harbor Point's annual revenue. David Clean, North Bay's CEO, specifically requested me as their account manager after I'd stepped in during a crisis when their previous representative dropped the ball. "You're the only one who seems to understand what we need before we even ask," he'd told me. From then on, the relationship between our companies flourished, with North Bay extending their contract and doubling their marketing budget with us. Victoria had been pleased. "This is the kind of initiative we value," she'd said. Though that value never translated to my compensation, My first request for a raise came after that success, armed with performance metrics and revenue numbers that spoke for themselves. "It's just not in the budget this year," Victoria had explained, with a rehearsed look of regret. "But your contribution is noted." I accepted it. Then the economy had been uncertain, and I was still building my portfolio. But the following year, after bringing in 3 new major clients and receiving an industry award for a campaign I'd designed, the same answer came. "Next year will be better," she promised. "We just need to tighten our belts a little longer." Meanwhile, Victoria drove to work in a new luxury SUV, and the company leased an additional floor in our building for expansion. Still, I remained loyal, believing that dedication would eventually be rewarded. The third denial came 6 months ago, right after I'd successfully negotiated a 40% increase in North Bay's annual contract value. "Your performance is exceptional," Victoria had said, "but we're investing in infrastructure this year. Perhaps we can revisit in the summer." Something in me had finally broken. That night, I updated my resume for the first time in 6 years. Not out of anger or revenge, but out of self-respect. I was worth more than constant promises and perpetual denial. I just never expected Victoria would discover my job search before I was ready to give my notice. At home, I set the cardboard box on my kitchen counter and stared at it, the reality of what had just happened finally hitting me. I wasn't just between meetings or taking a day off. I was unemployed. The weight of it pressed against my chest, momentarily making it difficult to breathe. My phone rang, displaying my best friend Olivia's name. "I just heard," she said when I answered. "Thomas texted me." "Are you all right?" News spread quickly. "I'm processing," I said candidly, settling down on a kitchen stool. "It happened so quickly, it's completely unfair, Olivia," she continued, her voice rising with wrath. Thomas was Olivia's partner and Harbor's IT specialist. "Everyone knows you're the only reason North Bay has stayed with Harbor Point this long. Victoria is just intimidated because you're better at the job than she ever was." That was somewhat accurate. Prior to becoming a manager, Victoria was the company's top account executive. She frequently inserted herself needlessly into my meetings with North Bay, which led many of us to believe she missed the recognition and client relationships. I added, "The worst part is how she did it, in a fit of rage, as if seeking opportunities." After being passed over for promotion for 3 years in a row was some sort of corporate treason. Olivia said, "It's her loss," with firmness. She was obviously correct when she said, "And honestly, Addison, maybe it's for the best. You've been undervalued there for years." I hadn't stayed at Harbor Point because it was the best option for my career, but rather out of loyalty to my clients and co-workers. However, it hurt a lot to be fired in this way, and to be led away by security as though I were a criminal. There was a call coming in when my phone beeped. "David Clean. Olivia, I need to take this. It's North Bay." She said, "Go take it. Call me after," and hung up. I inhaled deeply before responding. David skipped the small talk and stated, "Addison, I just heard what happened at Harbor Point. Are you available to come in today? I'd like to accelerate our conversation." My pulse quickened. "Yes, I can be there at 2 p.m. as you suggested." "Excellent. And Addison, don't worry about what happened this morning. Sometimes these things have a way of working out for the best." I hung up and looked into the kitchen glass at my reflection. The woman who was staring back at me was being released, not vanquished. After taking a shower, I put on my finest suit, which I saved for making business proposals. A peculiar calmness descended upon me while I put on my makeup. Victoria believed that by firing me so quickly, she had punished me. But maybe she had done me a favor. Although embarrassing, that morning had also been illuminating. I had dedicated my ingenuity, my loyalty, and innumerable unpaid overtime hours to Harbor Point. I had been dismissed and depreciated in exchange. I was confident that I would never again give my all to anyone who failed to recognize my value, regardless of what transpired next. It was time for me to take charge. In downtown Spokane, the top 3 stories of a shiny glass structure housed the North Bay Solutions headquarters. North Bay adopted modern design, including open areas, collaboration pods, and walls of windows with views of the mountains, in contrast to Harbor Point's outdated office with its beige walls and worn-out furnishings. I practiced my interview, speech in my head as I took the elevator to the 31st level. I would have to justify my unexpected availability without coming across as resentful of Harbor Point. Being professional was essential, even while talking about awkward subjects. David appeared as the elevator doors opened. David Clean was waiting in the reception area when I arrived. He held out his hand in a hearty greeting. "Thank you for coming on such short notice." After 3 years of working together, I had learned to respect David's brilliance and fairness. He was in his early 50s, had salt and pepper hair, and was known for both. I responded, "I appreciate the flexibility," and gave him a firm handshake. "It's been an unexpected day." He said, "Let's talk in my office," and ushered me across the busy work area. As we went by, a few North Bay staff members I knew from our account work nodded or waved. Despite being smaller than Victoria's showcase, David's corner office was far more hospitable, with cozy chairs set up for conversation rather than intimidation. He said, "Coffee?" "Please." David went right to the point when we were seated with steaming drinks. I received a call from Victoria. "Sanders this morning," he said. "She informed me that you would no longer be handling the North Bay account and that she would personally oversee our business until a replacement was assigned." I nodded while maintaining a neutral expression in spite of the slight outburst of rage. Naturally, Victoria would make an effort to keep their most important client. This astonished me. "What she doesn't know," David went on, "is that we were already concerned about our relationship with Harbor Point." Worried? The results of the most recent campaign were 23% better than expected. "The results were excellent," he said, "because of your work. But we've noticed changes at Harbor Point over the past year. Delayed responses, quality issues with anyone except you, and frankly, a sense that they're taking our business for granted." Placing his coffee mug aside, he leaned forward. 3. Months ago, our board suggested we explore other marketing partners. I resisted because of our relationship with you. You've consistently demonstrated an understanding of our brand and business needs that goes beyond the typical client-agency relationship. My thoughts were racing. Did he say what I believed him to say? "When you reached out about potential opportunities here," David went on, "it felt like perfect timing. But I need to be clear about something. We were never planning to poach you. We respect professional boundaries too much for that. We were prepared to wait until you gave proper notice at Harbor Point." I felt it was important that he know that. "Once I had a firm offer, I was planning to give 2 weeks' notice," I added. David grinned. "I believe you. Your professionalism is one of the reasons we're having this conversation. Victoria's decision this morning simply accelerated our timeline." He pushed a document across to me from a folder on his desk and said, This isn't an interview, Addison. It's a job offer. Director of Client Strategy. You'd be building and leading a team to manage all our external marketing partnerships and agency relationships. When I looked down at the paper and read the wage figure, I gasped. It was almost double. My most recent raise request was denied, but what I was earning at Harbor Point was more than I would have even asked for. This is really kind. David clarified. For someone with your experience and track record, I managed its market rate. Sometimes, you have to get out of a circumstance to see your true value. On my kitchen table that night, the offer letter was signed and prepared for return the following day. David and I both knew that I would say yes when I asked him to stay the night, to go over everything. Even if the solution seemed clear, I nonetheless showed professional politeness by giving important judgments some thought. All day, my phone had been ringing with texts from old Harbor Point co-workers. Soon after I was fired, there were rumors that I had met at North Bay. Despite avoiding being sucked into office gossip, I had replied to a few close co-workers. Nobody missed the irony when Thomas texted, "Victoria called an emergency meeting after you left, told everyone you were terminated for breach of company loyalty and that we should all remember that Harbor Point rewards loyalty above all." I shook my head. Victoria was attempting to humiliate me, but based on Thomas's message, it appeared that her strategy would backfire. Our receptionist, Jessica, sent us another text message. She's been locked in her office making calls all afternoon. Looks stressed. Guess someone's worried about North Bay. I didn't reply. Victoria's sorrow brought me a fresh sense of confidence that I had made the correct choice in searching elsewhere, but no satisfaction. I no longer wanted to be a part of a workplace culture that rewarded loyalty without providing anything in return. An unidentified number rang on my phone. "Interesting," I replied. "Addison Walker," said a female voice. My stomach clenched as I heard, "Speaking. This is Elaine Winters. I'm on the board at Harbor Point Communications. Board members hardly ever get involved in employee issues. I understand there was an incident today regarding your employment," she said. That was it. Victoria had fired her most valuable account manager without board consent, and now North Bay might be going when she said, "I'd like to meet with you tomorrow to discuss it." Victoria may have been hasty in her decision. Control of damage. I said, "I appreciate the call, Miss Winters, but I've already accepted another position in a firm but kind manner." A pause. "May I ask where?" Another longer wait. "I don't think that would be appropriate to share at this time." "Addison, if this is about compensation, I'm sure we can revisit those conversations. The board values your contribution to Harbor Point." The irony was almost unbearable. After 3 years of my documented pleas for fair compensation being denied, the board suddenly recognized my contribution. Sincerely, "It's not just about compensation," I said. "We should have a face-to-face conversation about this. It's about respect and recognizing employee worth before they have one foot out the door." She pushed for the morning of tomorrow. There was something to be said for professional closure, even though I had no plans to go back to Harbor Point. I said, "I can meet at 9 a.m. But just to be clear, I have a job commitment somewhere. I'm not here to try to work out a return." "I'll see you tomorrow at our offices," Elaine continued, although it seemed like she didn't trust me. I poured myself a glass of wine, hung up, and walked out onto the balcony of my apartment. It was a cold but nice spring evening, and as dusk descended, the city lights started to sparkle. Tomorrow would bring a discussion I hadn't expected, but maybe it was essential. An opportunity to explain what had gone wrong at Harbor Point, not only for my own personal closure, but also as input that could help those who were left. David Clean sent me an email with the subject line, "Welcome to the team," and my phone buzzed. I was confident of one thing. I was not looking back, regardless of what transpired tomorrow. As a guest, it felt odd to walk into the Harbor Point welcome area. When Jessica noticed me, her professional grin wavered and her eyes widened. "Are you here to meet with Ms. Winters, Addison?" "Yes," I said, signing the visitor log. Jessica added, "I'll let her know you've arrived," before lowering her voice. Another surreal moment. "For what it's worth, everyone's talking about how wrong this was. You were the best of us." Her words made me feel warm. "Thank you, Jessica." I took a moment to gather myself on the elevator ride to the conference room. In order to remind myself and everyone else that I was approaching this meeting as an equal and not as a fired employee looking for atonement, I had dressed professionally in a navy suit. When I got there, Elaine Winters had a slim folder in front of her and was already waiting. She had the composed confidence of someone accustomed to making million-dollar judgments before breakfast, and she was in her 60s, with silver hair trimmed in a neat bob. She remarked, "Miss Walker, thank you for coming," and got up to shake my hand. Elaine said, "Please have a seat." I expected Victoria to join us, but it was obvious that this would be a private discussion as she shut the door. Elaine started, "I've reviewed your personnel file," and opened the folder. She looked up at me and said, "I was not aware of this pattern." I was taken aback because I thought board-level reviewers examined compensation choices. 6 years of excellent performance reviews, consistent growth in your account portfolio, and 3 formal requests for salary adjustments, all denied. Elaine's tone conveyed dissatisfaction, but her demeanor remained calm. Major compensation. Changes, yes, but management has discretion within certain parameters. Victoria has been operating with significant autonomy. Her next statement was, "I see. What I don't see," she added, "is documentation justifying your termination yesterday. There's no company policy prohibiting interviews with other organizations." I responded that the word used was disloyal. Elaine's eyebrow lifted slightly, which was an intriguing decision considering the situation. She shut the folder. The offer was better than anything Victoria had been willing to consider, but it came 3 years and 1 humiliating dismissal too late. "Ms. Walker, I'll be direct. The board would like to offer you reinstatement with the adjusted compensation you requested in your last review, plus a 10% increase and the title of Senior Account Director." I said, "That's a generous offer," but Elaine said without asking, "But as I mentioned on the phone, I've already accepted a position elsewhere at North Bay Solutions." I kept my professional limits by not confirming or denying. Elaine looked at me for a time before saying, "My new role begins Monday." And there it was, the true reason for this meeting. Not worry about how I'd been handled, but fear of losing a big client. Victoria is concerned North Bay may reconsider their relationship with Harbor Point given your departure? That would be a question for North Bay, I said thoughtfully. Yes, Elaine nodded, as if she valued my discretion. The unexpected but pleasant question was, one last question, if I may. What could Harbor Point have done differently to retain you? I paused to think about my answer, appreciating my worth before I had to search elsewhere. I went on to say, loyalty works both ways, Miss Winters. Harbor Point expected unwavering commitment while repeatedly demonstrating I wasn't worth investing in. That creates an unsustainable imbalance. Elaine gave a thoughtful nod. She stood and held out her hand, saying, "A fair assessment." I felt lighter than I had in years as I left Harbor Point for the second and last time. "Thank you for your candor. Whatever your next steps, I wish you success." The goal of this meeting was to provide me the opportunity to recover my story and to depart on my own terms while maintaining my professional reputation and dignity. It was not about giving me another chance. I had received a surprise present. There was a mix of exhilaration and anxiety on Monday morning. Today marked the formal start of a new chapter in my career as I started my new role at North Bay Solutions. I was excited to get settled in my new office, which was a genuine office with windows and a door, unlike the small cubicle I had been using at Harbor Point. I arrived early. David had made sure that everything was prepared, including the technological setup and welcome basket, even though I was in a senior position. He came over to introduce me to my new team at 9 a.m., which consisted of 5 outstanding marketing professionals who would be working under my supervision to oversee North Bay's numerous agency partnerships. I couldn't help but notice the irony that I had gone from managing just one account to supervising all marketing collaborations, including the person who would now be in charge of the Harbor Point relationship. "Team, this is Addison Walker, our new Director of Client Strategy," David said. "She is well known to many of you from her outstanding work at Harbor Point. We're lucky to have her experience in-house now, communications." Following greetings and a quick team meeting to set priorities, David invited me to join him in the conference room, where I discovered a number of North Bay's executive team members seated around a table. "Before you dive in completely," David explained, "we wanted your input on an important decision." The chief financial officer of the company said, "We're reevaluating our relationship with Harbor Communications in light of recent changes. Next month, their contract is up for renewal. We value your perspective," the chief marketing officer added. "You understand our needs and have firsthand knowledge of Harbor Point's capabilities." I could have suggested ending the relationship, quick, satisfying retaliation against Victoria. The chance to deal Harbor Point a serious financial blow was right in front of me. No one would question it. Business relationships ended all the time. However, that wasn't who I was. While retaliation might feel good in the short term, professionalism would benefit me more in the long run. I think we should evaluate Harbor Point on the same criteria as any other potential partner, I remarked with care. Their work has been strong, but consistency and account management will be critical factors to consider moving forward. 1 week after Victoria fired me from Harbor Point, the email was sent at 11 a.m. on Wednesday. I hadn't planned the timing. It was just when North Bay's executive team made a final decision after considering proposals from 3 competing agencies. David had allowed me to view the email before it was sent, but I had withdrawn from the final decision to avoid any appearance of bias or improper behavior. The message was straightforward and professional. North Bay Solutions has made the decision to move our account to Meridian Creative with immediate effect after carefully evaluating our future marketing requirements. Our changing brand strategy and digital needs are reflected in this choice. Our new Director of Client Strategy, Addison Walker, will be in charge of the changeover and your point of contact. We value our collaboration and ask that all materials be sent by Friday at the latest. I pictured Victoria's reaction when she heard the news. The shock, followed by the realization that she had lost not just me, but also North Bay, a client that accounted for almost 30% of Harbor Point's yearly income, and that I would be the one handling the changeover. The ideal professional retaliation had landed in my lap without my having to plan it. I didn't need to sabotage the relationship or disparage Harbor Point. The company's own shortcomings, brought to light by my departure, had done that for me. Later that afternoon, Jessica, the receptionist at Harbor Point, sent me a private message and a LinkedIn request. "Thank you for your kindness during my time at Harbor Point. Wishing you all the best. Vice is chaos. Victoria's been in emergency meetings all day. 3 other account managers have updated their resumes. Karma works fast." I didn't respond right away because I didn't need to gloat or meddle in Harbor Point's internal affairs. After all, success was the best retaliation. It felt surprisingly good to take the high road. A year later, when I looked back on that journey, I realized that Victoria had unintentionally given me a priceless gift, the push I needed to find my true worth. In seeking revenge, I found something far more valuable: self-respect and the courage to claim the success I deserved. My new position at North Bay brought opportunities and challenges that I would not have experienced had I stayed at Harbor Point, waiting for recognition that might never come. Sometimes the best revenge isn't something you actively pursue. It's the natural consequence of valuing yourself when others don't.